Good morning to my friends, to our community members that are here joining forces in love, in faith, and in the right thing to do. My name is Sylvia Nolasco-Rivers. I'm a native of El Salvador, born and raised in San Salvador. But in the early 80s and in the historically back in the 70s, El Salvador was suffering a massive civil war that took the lives of many innocent children, fathers, mothers, grandparents. And all because the people of El Salvador wanted justice, wanted to have rights like the rest of the people there. We fought against the regiment that tried to keep the Salvadoran people down and continue to harm all people. So in the early 80s, my family organized to talk against the Salvadoran government about what they were doing. Unfortunately, back in those days, in El Salvador, if you spoke against the regiment and what the Salvadoran government was doing, you were either disappeared, you were murdered, and that was the way that they dealt with the situation. They didn't want people standing up against them and saying, this is not okay, this is not right. We have the right to live a good life, a life with dignity. So in '81, there was a massacre in my grandmother's house that killed 2 of my uncles and wounded some of my family members, an aunt and a cousin. After that, that was the time where the rest of my family thought, what's there for us here in El Salvador? There's nothing. So my aunt Pilar had migrated a couple of years before to Mexico City, where she had lived for a couple of years. After my grandfather died, my mother said, well, let's go to Mexico. Let's see what's there for us. So my family came to Mexico to be with my Aunt Pilar, not really knowing what our path would be, and really think that we were going to settle in Mexico somewhere. While we were there about 3 months, there was some talk about a church, a Quaker house in Eugene, Oregon, that was doing some work with sanctuary. I was a small child, so I didn't really know and understand what all those things meant then. But I knew that my mother wanted something better for us, a better life.
Viva, sí se puede.
Sí se puede, claro que sí. So there was a Quaker house in Eugene, Oregon that wanted to sponsor a family. There was a pastor from El Salvador who knew of this movement that was happening. So about 3-4 months into being in Mexico, there were young activists, young people from the United States, from Mexico, from other parts of the world that said, we want to be able to give this family a better life, and many families. So they risked their lives to smuggle families like mine, many of them. We crossed where Mexico and Arizona border. There were many, many young activists that put their lives at risk for my family, that some of them went to jail because they believed that this was not the right thing to do. And so my family was smuggled in Arizona. We were then, with open arms, welcomed in Phoenix, Arizona, by another Quaker house, and the community welcomed us with love. Lots of hugs, lots of kisses, and glad that we were there. We stayed there for about a week, and then my family went to Eugene, Oregon, where the Quaker house in Eugene opened their doors for us. And we lived there for about 9 months, being very open, publicly speaking against the insurrection in El Salvador. and how the United States had something to do with that. Really talking and speaking the truth of the injustice and the imbalance. Because we were at that time refugees, we did not have legal papers. The church, like this church, opened the doors to our family so that we could be safe, that we could be protected. While others in the community were mobilizing themselves and finding ways to keep our family here in this country legally. So I am have so much gratitude. I have a lot of joy in my heart because what we're doing here together in this community is the right thing to do. And I am forever, will always be grateful, because had it not been for people like you that care so deeply about others, like what's happening right now in this country, I don't know that I would be here. I don't know that I would have had the opportunity to have met this incredible man and had beautiful children like Isaac and Espy and Gabriel, who are my life. I had the opportunity to have a better life. You know, I'll always have the pain when you grow up in a war, when you grow up in poverty. There's always that will be with you, and that's okay. But I am so grateful to have the opportunity to be here alive, well, and to be able to do what we're doing here, which is the right thing, to save other families, to keep them here in our communities. These families are just like mine and yours, working hard, doing the right thing. And this is the right thing. And so I am really grateful, have lots of gratitude, and I thank God, because it is of people like you that others like me have opportunities. So from my heart, from all the people that came in the early 80s from El Salvador, I say thank you. Muchas gracias por su amor, por su entendimiento, for the understanding of what is really happening and opening up your hearts to those who need help and protection. Muchas gracias.